Hey everybody, it's BaronJ, and yeah, it's been a while, I know. This is the first year I've ever worked a retail job, and I did not realize the holiday season was as harrowing as it is. So, I didn't get, anything done, and I know it's crazy. But, the time has rolled around again for Christmas. Christmas stuff. I gotta do a Christmas video. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, what can I do? I can do Tokyo Godfathers. Well, it's Christmassy, but I don't know if I want to review it because I think it's pretty great. I could do the Haruhi movie, which is Haruhi, and it's during Christmas time, but it's less about Christmas and more about, if I do Haruhi, I'll do both of those at the same time. Plus, on top of this, I've had a lot of my editing and recording time cut down by another project, which I'm going to tell you about at the end of this video, so be excited for that. So I finally sat down and thought about it and said, you know what, maybe I'll answer the question that every single person I ever meet or ever sees my videos asks me. Hey Baron, how'd you get your voice to sound so damn good? The quick answer is, step 1, chain smoke for 2 years. Step 2, record yourself. That's basically it. There's no secret there. I mean, yeah, don't smoke. It's bad. Don't do that. The second part of the answer is a little bit more complicated, but I can answer it for you guys because I figured out a way to do it very, very effectively. I'm going to do a tutorial for you guys today. This is a little, probably about 5 to 10 minute masterclass on audio engineering and how to record yourself, how to make your voiceovers sound good. One of the main reasons why I try to do that in all my videos and make all the music and stuff like that is because primarily I'm an audio engineer. I have a degree that I spent a lot of time getting. And it's my passion. I do it all the time. And at the end of the video, I'll show you how I've used that to my advantage. Yeah, let's get started. Okie dokie, so now we're in my recording and editing software of choice. This is Logic Pro. I've used Logic Pro since I started, and, Pro Tools also works really well for this. Adobe Audition has a lot of functionality for this as well. But honestly, it really does not matter what program you use. All I'm doing is teaching you the techniques that you need to do this kind of stuff. Okay, first up, gonna teach you about EQ. EQ is an awesome thing. EQ, you probably know what this is. It's equalization, equalizer. What this essentially does is a little thing like in your car, where the low shelf boosts up all the low end. I'll boost it all the way up. Whoa, you can hear, look at all the bass in my voice. Listen to that. Oh my God. You can do the same thing like on the high end, things like that. Look at now I sound real crisp. Listen to that. Listen to that goodness. Oh my God. Don't do this. Never ever do that. That's a terrible, terrible idea. What that does, essentially, is just boosts all of the frequencies in that area. So that was a shelf. That's kind of like the things you find in your car and things like that. This is a bell, and a bell is extremely handy. So you can boost the gain on the shelf and find the frequency of something you don't like in your voice, like that. It's pretty nice. You can get a little comb filter effect with those too. But what that also does is helps you find something that sucks. So I'm listening here. Let me turn up my headphones a little bit. Yeah, this sounds like ass. Who would ever actually listen to this? So drag that down, and it cuts that out. Now, don't do it to 15 like I did for an example, but do it to a safe, 8's pretty good. This last value is your Q, so that's how narrow the drag out is. I usually do it somewhere between 1 and 60, just to take out the stuff that I don't need. This works on any parametric EQ. Typically, what you want to cut out right around here is the nasaliness of your voice. That's 1020 hertz. That's typically where that is. It can reside in other areas, but I usually just take that out right off the bat. Some of the honkiness can be down here, and especially, actually, before I forget, there's this almost cardboard box quality bass right around here-ish. Right there. That. Cut that out. That is just nasty. Then up in the high end, you want to go somewhere around here. Somewhere in the 3K area. 3K, nobody likes 3K. Just, all of this 3000 area just sucks. Mine's typically right around here-ish anyway, so I'll just cut that out and get rid of that as well. Now, another thing that you may notice a lot of times is that you get these P-plosive sounds like p, p, p. Those peak out and they sound terrible, fucking terrible. What you can do to get rid of that is this guy over here. This is a high-pass filter or a low-cut. This will cut out any frequency below a certain point. And to get rid of all the P's and the plosives and things like that, go to right around between 80 and 90. That's where a lot of that resides, and it just fixes everything and it makes it sound good. Now, what I'm doing here is just cutting out everything that I don't need, because the next step is going to be the different process called compression. Now, everybody loves compression, but don't overdo this. So essentially what this does is, depending on the ratio that you set, let's say right here for voice, let's do a 4 to 1. Okay. So what this ratio essentially says is 4 decibels and 1 decibel. This 1 decibel means for every 1 decibel over the threshold, which I set, which is going to be somewhere around like 39-ish, 38. For every 1 decibel it goes over 38, it's going to do 4 decibels of reduction. So you can already see it doing that. So it's picking up on like the peaks of the audio and squishing it down. You can see it down here too. Like it's all really, really even. That's what that's supposed to do. Now, what these do down here is a completely, whoa, big ass mouse for no reason. That's a weird glitch. What these do are your other speed settings. Attack is the speed at which the compressor will activate. So if you've got a very like percussive sound like a snare drum, you want to keep that percussion in, so you set the attack a little bit higher. So that's where like you'll get the cut, but it'll compress the rest of the entire snare sound. And I typically, for like voiceover, I leave this set to like anywhere between 12 to 15. It's pretty good. It catches most of everything. Still leaves some dynamic level later on, so it's not like all the way, like completely compressed all the way through. What this release does is basically says, the compression will stop at a certain point. Right here, it's 48.0 milliseconds. So I typically kind of just leave this where it is, because with voiceover, the release doesn't really affect that much. If you're singing, it's kind of different. Honestly, a lot too. This auto button sets the release automatically depending on where you set this. It's pretty handy, and on most compressors, it works pretty well. So I'd say yes. Finally, what you want to do with this afterwards is find this, why is my mouse getting so big? Basically, you just take this gain knob. What that does is just like boosts the output signal after you've compressed it. Now, typically I'm getting anywhere between 7 to 8 decibels of reduction, so I want to put it up by 7 to 8. That's why it's called makeup gain. Haha. So now you can see I actually do sound like a little bit better. It's a really noticeable effect once you put it on, but I only really do this just to catch the peaks and stuff like that. You can even see I'm saying pa, 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 and it's not like peeking out the microphone anymore. Finally, the next step. That's not the final step, but whatever. Remember this EQ thing that we were doing before where we were cutting everything out because it sounded like ass? Guess what? We're going to do that again. So now I've got another EQ here, and what this EQ is going to do is we're going to just boost up everything that we like about our voice. So typically with these frequency ranges, by the way, with these frequencies, you can only hear physically, like your ears can only hear anything between 20 hertz to 20k hertz. If you try to boost anything above that, nothing's going to fucking happen. Even then, if you've gone to a lot of concerts and listened to a lot of music very loudly, you're going to lose your hearing down to about anywhere between 15 to 12k. Even then, that's still also not very noticeable. Also, anything in the like 20 to 60 to 80 range in audio is like almost inaudible, but you'll feel it. Because if you have a subwoofer big enough, like me, it will shake your entire house. So first thing you want to do is find the body of your voice. For me, I have a slightly deep and sexy voice. So I'm going to take that down to about like 150-ish and hunt around there somewhere. That's typically pretty good where it is. Yeah, right around there. Take that, leave that just about where it is. It's pretty spread out anyway. And then go over here. This and this, we're going to save again because that's another thing. This is going to be your high end, like your clarity. Don't boost anywhere in that 3K or really around the 2K area because that's really, really crisp and it makes it sound bad. Really, you want to head somewhere around the like 5 to 10 area. This will add like a lot of clarity to your voice and make you sound very, very high quality. I typically leave it somewhere in the middle, somewhere around like 75. And then I just widen the whole thing out of it over that whole like area. And then I fix it later in post if it sounds bad. Now back to these two. These two bands God, what is with my mouse right now? I've left these two bands open because sometimes even with the compression and even taking it out before the compressor, there will be stuff that you still want to cut out. So we're going to go through. See, this already just sounds really, that just, ew. Let's get rid of that. That's gone. Go away. And then sometimes, some very few times, there will be something like, there's not a lot here left anymore, but somewhere up here, there will be this really nasty, like gross, really ew quality. Like I can kind of hear it here, but it's not terribly bad. So let's go back down here. Does this sound? Yeah, there's that like, ew. I don't know what that is. It's gross. I don't like it. Take it away. So now you can hear like, it's really smooth. It sounds really good. It's like, hey baby, how you doing? You're essentially getting a little preview of a BaronJ episode and how I make it here. This is kind of interesting. So the next thing you're going to do before any of this is, I'm a dumbass and I forgot to tell you about a thing. So let's say your microphone is pretty good and it's decent and, you know, it picks up a lot of stuff, but there's a lot of noise in the background. Like you can kind of hear a lot of noise in mine. Yeah, there you go. Someone's moving outside. What you want to do is there's another plugin called a gate. This is a noise gate. What this does, and you can already kind of hear it working. What this does is cuts off all noise below a certain threshold. Kind of like the compressor. A lot of the stuff works this way. Big ass mouse, go away. So what you want to do is find an area of your audio that's got nothing in it. So like here, this is noise. There's nothing here. Take this, figure out what that level is. Okay, it's pretty low. So we'll take that down to here-ish, -49. So my voice is still coming through, and anything that might get cut out is still kind of in there. Most noise gates will have a attack and release function like that. So this will activate, like, it's the same process as the compressor. Like, this is how slow it is to activate. This is how long it is to activate. This hold is actually how long it will stay open. So it's really like a gate. The gate is staying open as long as the thing is under or above the threshold, depending on how you set it. This stuff, big ass mouse. This stuff is just nonsense to you guys for right now, so avoid it. This reduction setting is actually like, it sets how strong the gate is to activate. So now you can barely hear me, and this is the, you know, super loud. Now, another thing you can do to also avoid this, which is what I do a lot of the time, because I barely ever use a noise gate unless I really need it. A lot of programs, I know Adobe Audition has this, I know Logic Pro has this, I know Pro Tools has this. Final Cut may have an option for this, and so may Premiere, but I don't know because I rarely ever use those programs. Strip silence. It might be remove silence, it might be some other kind of function. If you Google strip silence in X, where X is the program that you use, it will probably have a function like this. So what strip silence does is, oh look, a threshold thing again. That's just like the strength for the strip silence here. It says minimum time to accept as silence. That controls like how long the silence can possibly be in your waveform. So find it where it's like in a good portion for all of this nonsense. This is pretty good. Some of this is going to get cut off over here, but it's not terribly bad. And then there's pre-attack time and post-release time. This just controls like little length sections like this. If you have your pre-attack here set like this, you'll catch all of the S's and stuff and it won't get cut off. So I typically leave that about like 100-ish, 100, 120, something like that. Post-release time does the same thing to the end. So if you've got like S sounds at the end, they're going to get cut off. So I typically set that at around 100 as well, 120. That just leaves enough space in there to catch most everything. So what this does is essentially you hit OK, and this strips out all of the silence that was in there. So this essentially acts like a noise gate, but just to your recorded file. Now the next thing you might say is, BaronJ, that's like a lot of stuff. I don't want to edit through all of this. That mouse is really starting to scare me. BaronJ, there's a lot of audio here. I don't want to work through all this that fast. Well, there's another function you can use, and a lot of programs have this. This is called shuffling, and shuffling is very fun. I'll take all of this audio, and the shuffle function is typically somewhere in your menu, like up here. It's in Move on Logic Pro. Shuffle left. What this will do will take all of these audio files and remove all the silence between them, and let's just like move them all closer together. It just scrumples them all to the left, like this. Look at that. They're all next to each other now. Now you can just go through and listen to all your takes and delete the ones that you don't like or sound like ass. So now that we've done that, so now that we've got the EQ and everything sounding pretty good, There are a couple things that you can do after this. There's a de-esser, which is a little dynamics plugin that you can have. There's a lot of these. There's a lot of free ones everywhere. What this does is listens for your S and like sibilance factors, and what you want to do is find the detecting frequency and then like set that to where most of your S's happen. So we'll just listen to all the S's in my voice, and I'll just go like somewhere around 7,000, and we'll set the sensitivities somewhat like low-ish, because you still want to have that S in there, but it won't be as harsh. You can already tell it's actually kind of like not harsh anymore, so that's what that does. It's very handy. Another thing you can do is have a multiband compressor, and I know I've got one, and yeah, there's one. There we go. Multipressor. This mouse is creepy. I don't like it. What this does is the same thing as this compressor over here. This compressor is reducing all of my levels at a certain volume, and it's doing its job. But what this does is the same thing, except it's like an EQ, where there are specific bands that you can set. So let's just solo this out, and I'll try to talk. You can barely even hear me. See, I was talking there. You could almost barely even hear me. That's all the low end. So what we'll do is we'll take this ratio, set it to like a decent 2.5, then take the threshold and find it where it just about hits that, like, you can see it going down now. So you really don't want to compress this too much. Basically, what you want to do is set it so it just barely looks like it's functioning. So right about there seems good. And then what you want to do is go through each of these bands. So like here, I want to find where like all of my like meat and body to my voice and stuff is. So that's typically right around here, right around in this area. Do the same thing, find it to where it starts activating, right about there-ish. Yeah, that's pretty good. Do the same thing for each band. Find all the things, do all the things, especially like in the high end, you want to compress it a lot. Sometimes it's better just to leave the high end alone up here, because honestly, touching this sometimes really doesn't do much. And honestly, most of the time you want this to be like untouched anyway. You want to hear the high stuff. It makes you sound good. Speaking of which, that high end right there is going a little bit too high there. Yeah, there we go. See, that sounds better. So now that we're done with that, and by the way, you can also like set the gain. You can kind of use this as an EQ by itself. So like now we're just going to boost up all of my lows, kind of leave that where it is, boost up the highs again. So now I sound really crisp and clean. Crispin Freeman. Finally, the last thing that you do, and typically you want to do this on your master track so you can change all of this stuff later on, but you can also just put it right here. I'm just going to do it here. Typically, you just want to find a limiter. There are a bunch of free ones. There's actually a clone of the one that I'm using that works very, very, very well. But what a limiter does is essentially the same thing as the compressor, except at a very, 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 very high ratio, like 100 to 1. And a limiter is a very, very simple little plugin. Honestly, a lot of people, you could use this limiter as the one plugin on your strip, and it fixes a lot of your dynamic problems. The EQ and stuff is just to make yourself sound better. This will actually even out all of your levels. The other problem is limiters are not safe. Limiters are very dangerous, especially in like the mixing and mastering world. There was a Metallica album that was mastered that sounded so terrible, it was absolutely like panned, and they found out it was because they hard limited the thing to like -20 just to make it louder, which is what we're going to kind of do, but you'll see what's going on. So this link button controls both of these sliders, and you want to drag that down probably to no farther than 10. 10 is a little high. So we're going to leave that there because there's obviously no reduction going on. Like if I were to bring it down here, you can see there's reduction, but that's going to sound terrible. So bring it down to about like 9, 10 if you don't have that in there. If you do, leave it to about -6. Don't like go above 12 because it's going to sound terrible. Even then, probably leave it at like -3. So once you've found this level and set it, the magic setting is going back to your out ceiling. So like this is the threshold at which reduction happens. That's the same with every fucking compressor program you're ever going to use. But your out ceiling controls how loud your output signal will be. And you can see down here, it's somewhere around -18. It kind of sucks. So what you do is you bring that back up to -0.3. -0.3 because that will prevent any of your audio from peaking out any system you play it on. Everybody just drags it all the way up to 0 just to be like, yeah, it's loud for no reason. But that's not a good idea. You will blow out speakers doing that. So let's set that to -3 and you'll see what happens. So now you can hear that in my voice. You can hear that like noise in the background and stuff. So in your file, if you've cut out the silence, that won't be there. But as you can tell, I sound very even, very like commanding, very, hello, my name is BaronJ. This is the secret spice that makes everything sound kind of good. So now you can kind of hear that my S's are still a little bit high, and after I've done all of this, I can actually just still go back and change that. So yeah, I'll take it up to about 17. That's not terribly bad. Yeah, that's okay. So yeah, once this is done and everything's good, you just bounce out your file and do the thing. So here's a preview to what BaronJ might sound like if I were doing this like right now. Hey everybody, it's BaronJ and I'm going to talk about anime for some reason. Anime's the best. Anime is great. Anime is a really cool thing that you should show to your mom and your dad, especially Boku no Pico. It's the best. It's a masterpiece. Honestly, a real piece of art. It's wonderful. Great. I love it. It's wonderful. Just wonderful. The other thing you might notice is that there's these weird little pops in there. Most of the time when you shuffle, it doesn't really like leave little overlaps anywhere, but in this it does. So there's a nice couple of functions that you can do to make this sound better. One of the things you can do is that if your program is like a digital audio workstation like mine and it has a tempo function, this is so handy. You just take this tempo and go down just a teensy bit, probably to like 16, 17, or 14 in this case, and look, it actually adds the little spaces in there. I have edited so much audio in the past couple of weeks with that function, it's not even funny. It's so handy. The other thing you can do, if you don't want to do that, a lot of programs will have this functionality, but it's something you can do. Just make it so that your overlaps are crossfades. You may have to Google how to do that in like each individual program, but most actually have this like plugged in. Because that's essentially what that's doing, is that every time something overlaps like that, anime is great. Anime is a really cool thing that you should show to your mom. What those pops are essentially just the file overlapping with itself. So what you can do is just set that drag to X fade so that every time that you have an audio file next to it, it'll just make a little fade there every time that happens. But there's also another function that you can do for that. I know in Pro Tools they have one that's called batch fades. I don't know what it is in Audition and Premiere, but there should be something for it. I don't know why they would ever not have that functionality. But you select all of the files in Logic Pro here, and then you do a little fade in and do a little fade out. That'll remove all the pops. All the pops are gone. You can see it did it to the whole file, everything in there. Finally, once you're done, everything's mixed out, everything's mastered, sounds pretty good. What you do is you bounce the file out or export it or however you want to say it. I say bounce because that's what it is in Logic Pro. And then once you're here, you want to pick your settings. Typically what you want to do is like, especially if it's an MP3, pick the highest quality. Pick the highest quality. Always pick the highest quality. Speaking of which, if you're ever working with voiceovers and you want your stuff to sound like the highest quality, don't bounce out to MP3. Bounce out to a PCM. These are like WAV and AIF files. These are always better than MP3s. And especially if you're doing a professional voiceover project or like doing stuff for your own channel, you always want to work with that. YouTube will encode it back down anyway at the end, so it's better to have it sound good on the export rather than have it sound bad on the export and then bad when it goes to YouTube. There's also a function over here called normalize. This is also very dangerous. What normalize does is takes the leftover space in your audio file. So let's say somewhere through here, like it notices that like, okay, this is the highest point, or actually, this is the highest point. It will take this and move it all the way up to 0. So on top of you limiting everything to make that happen, it will do that again. And that will make it sound overblown and terrible. Never, ever, ever, ever do that if you're mastering something like this. Yeah, and then all that's left is to just bounce all this out once you've finished making it sound good. So yeah, there you go. That's how you sound like BaronJ, baby. Okay, so now that you've got yourself sounding nice and buttery, you can talk about your opinions about Madoka Magica or Attack on Titan or all of your anime whatever, and you can rest assured that your shit taste will be broadcast to the entirety of YouTube and won't sound like ass. Now, since this is a Christmas video, I will also announce another little thing that I've been working on. In the past couple of months, you may have noticed that my videos have kind of slowed in production. I haven't been streaming or anything as much. I've been taking some time to actually work on another thing that's happening. I'm actually in the process of recording an audiobook. I don't know when it's going to go on sale because once I finish it, I don't know how long it takes between that aspect to the release of the actual damn thing. But when I do release it, I'll be putting out a little short video that says, hey, do you want to listen to me talk for 10 hours at a time? Because I know that's a thing you want to do. Here's me doing that. It's going to cost like somewhere between $5 and $10, and I get half of that, which is nice. I mean, I like to get paid for what I do. The book itself, despite appearances, is actually quite good. I was really surprised when I was reading some of it aloud. It's honestly kind of awesome. It's kind of like a sci-fi mixture of like Star Trek, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and Guardians of the Galaxy and Battlestar Galactica. Like, it's like all of those things rolled into one. It's actually really, really good. But yeah, look forward to that soon, wherever that is. So hopefully this makes up for the fact that I haven't made anything in a couple of months. So I will be returning to schedule soon, believe me. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.